Okay, welcome in. I'm going to be covering Saturday's action from the NHL. There were a total of 14 games, so this video is going to take a little while. Starting in Montreal as they played host to the St. Louis Blues. In the first period, Jake Evans would get his first goal of the season from Armia and David Savard, 8:34 of the first. Heading into the second, the Habs had a 1-0 lead. In the second period, Kirby Dach would get his first goal of the season from Suzuki and Matheson just a minute and 12 seconds into the second. And I am crossing my fingers and my toes and whatever else I can possibly cross that Kirby Dach can finally have a healthy season. The last two with Montreal has been injury plagued, and even when he was with Chicago for like 2 or 3 seasons, he was injured there as well. So again, I'm hoping he can have a full season, and I guarantee if he does, he can definitely help with the scoring, to say the least. Colton Parayko would make it 2-1 just 21 seconds after Dach scored, getting his first goal of the season from Joseph and Ryan Sutter. Jake Neighbors would tie the game up just over 4 minutes into that same period, getting his fourth of the year, as I said, from Saad and Shen. Alex Newhook would break the tie, getting a power play goal. That would be a second of the season from Dach and Matheson from 14:04 of the second period. In the third period, Cole Caulfield would get his seventh goal of the year from Suzuki and Lane Hudson, 5 minutes and 19 seconds of the third. Yoel Armia would add an empty net goal with just over 3 minutes to go from Dvorak and Jake Evans. So the Habs would win this game 5-2. Heading to Buffalo, where the Sabres played host to the Detroit Red Wings. I got to say, just looking at that picture of Tage Thompson, I love those uniforms that the Sabres had. This is like a late 90s, early 2000s throwback, and I would be 100% on board if they decided to rock these uniforms, because between that and the white version, they are definitely a classic, in my opinion. So in the first period, Jason Zucker would get his first goal as a member of the Buffalo Sabres, a power play marker from Thompson and Rasmus Dahlin just over 4 minutes into the first period. Exactly 12 minutes into that period, Tage Thompson would make it 2-0, getting his sixth goal of the year from Peterka and Rasmus Dahlin. Sorry. Alex Brink would make it 2-1, getting his fourth goal of the year from Sider and Lucas Raymond, 14:43 of the first period. So the Sabres had a 2-1 lead heading into the second. Tage Thompson will get his second goal of the game, his seventh of the season, from Dahlin, who had 3 assists at this point, 3 minutes and 20 seconds of the second period. Michael Rasmussen would cut the deficit to 3-2, just 31 seconds after that, getting his second goal of the season from Sider and Edvinsson. Lucas Raymond would tie the game up, getting a shorthanded goal. That'd be his first of the season, unassisted, 11:02 of the second period. Bowen Byram would get his first goal of the year from Power and Cousins, 15:54 of the second. So heading into the third period, the Sabres had a 4-3 lead. Jack Quinn would increase the lead to 5-3, getting an empty net goal with just 48 seconds remaining. That would be his first of the season, unassisted as well. So the Sabres would win this game 5-3. Now we're off to Philadelphia, where the Flyers played host to the Minnesota Wild. In the first period, Sean Couturier would get his first goal of the season from Ristolainen and Konechny, a minute 18 seconds of that frame. Nick Seeler would increase the lead to 2-0, getting his first goal of the year from Konechny and Michkov, 3:51 of the first. Heading into the second period, the Flyers had a 2-0 lead. In the second period, Brock Faber would get his first goal of the year from Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek, 14:54 of the second. Marcus Foligno would tie the game up, getting his first goal of the year, assisted by Chisholm, and that goal happened just over 30 seconds after Faber scored. Matvei Michkov would get on the goal scorer sheet himself, getting his fourth goal of the year from Couturier and Owen Tippett, and that goal happened with just 46 seconds remaining on the clock, giving the Flyers a 3-2 lead. But that lead didn't last long, with just 4 seconds remaining in the second period. The Wild would tie the game up. Joel Eriksson Ek would get a power play marker, his fourth goal of the year from Kaprizov and Boldy. In the third period, Marcus Foligno would give the Wild a lead. His second goal of the season from Bogosian and Broden, 2:18 of the third period. Not too long after that, Travis Konechny would tie the game up, getting his fourth goal of the year from Frost and Tippett, 4:55 of the third period. Sean Couturier would get his second goal of the game from Konechny and Sealer, 8:26 of the third, giving the Flyers a 5-4 lead. 13:28 of that period, Jake Middleton would tie the game up, getting his second goal of the season unassisted. Rasmus Ristolainen would score a late goal with just 2.5 minutes to go, getting his first goal of the year from Couturier and Konechny. And then to wrap things up, Couturier would get a natural hat trick, his third goal of the game, an empty netter from Cates and Sanheim. So a very high-scoring game between the Flyers and the Wild. 7-5 would be the final score. The Los Angeles Kings played host to the Utah Hockey Club. There was no scoring in the first. Brant Clark would get his first goal of the season in the second period, a power play marker from Kempe and Fiala, 7:51 of that period. Joel Edmondson, who signed with LA in the offseason, would get his first goal as a member of the Kings from Kopitar and Byfield, 13:10 of the second frame. Captain Clayton Keller would get the Utah Hockey Club their first goal of the game, his fifth of the season from Sergachev and Nick Schmaltz, and that goal happened with just over 4 minutes to go in the seconds. The Kings had a 2-1 lead heading into the third period. Joel Edmondson will get his second goal of the game from Kempe and Clark, 1:09 of the third. Logan Cooley would get his first goal of the season from Kesserling and Gunther, but unfortunately the Utah Hockey Club were not able to mount a comeback, so 3-2 would be the final score in favor of the Kings. And just as a little side note, I can't wait till next season when Utah actually has a real name. I'm so sick of like hockey team or football team. Just be creative, come up with a name. An original six matchup took place in Boston as the Bruins played host to the Toronto Maple Leafs. There was no score in the first. Matthew Knies would kick things off for the Leafs in the second, just under a minute into that frame, getting his fourth goal of the year from Matthews and Marner. David Pastrnak would get a power play goal, his sixth goal of the year from Marchand and Zacha, 2:57 of the second. Morgan Riley would give the Leafs a 2-1 lead, his second of the year from Marner and Tanev, 7:44 of the second period. Justin Brazeau would tie the game up, 12:38 of that same period. For Brazeau, that would be his second goal of the season from Frederick and Poitras. Mark Kastelik would give the Bruins a 3-2 lead, less than a minute after that. For Kastelik, that'd be his third goal of the year from Beecher and Koepke. So heading into the third period, the Bruins had a 3-2 lead. Austin Matthews would score in the third with 1:17 to go, tying the game up for the Leafs. His fourth goal of the year from Marner and John Tavares. We would need overtime to settle this one, and big surprise, the Leafs' number one nemesis, Brad Marchand, would get his first goal of the year from Pastrnak, 2:26 of the overtime frame, crushing the Leafs' hopes in this game. So 4-3 would be the final in favor of the Bruins. The Tampa Bay Lightning played host to the Washington Capitals. There was no scoring in the first, so Mitchell Chaffee would get the lone goal in the second, his second of the season from Nick Paul and Easimont, 5:27 of that period. In the third period, Brandon Point would increase the lead to 2-0, getting his fifth goal of the year from Kucherov, 2:26 of that frame. And just less than a minute after that, Connor Geekie, I would believe, would get his first National Hockey League goal from Cirelli and Brandon Hagel. That's where we would stand at the end of regulation, so 3-0 would be the final score in favor of the Lightning. The New York Rangers played host to the Anaheim Ducks. There was no scoring in the first two periods, so in the third period, Ryan Lindgren, would get his first goal of the season from Lafreniere and Panarin, 4:13 of that third. Will Cooley would increase lead to 2-0, getting his second goal of the game of the season, from Kakko and Sheedle, 11:53 of the third period. Owen Zellweger would score less than a minute after that, getting his first goal of the season from Carlson and Troy Terry. That's where we would stand at the end of regulation, so the Rangers would win this game 2-1. All right, an all-Canadian matchup took place in Calgary as the Flames played host to the undefeated Winnipeg Jets. Michael Backlund, the captain, would kick things off for the Flames in the first, getting his second goal of the year from Ball and Zari, just 28 seconds into the first period. Nick Ehlers would tie the game up a minute 51 seconds into that same period, getting his fourth goal of the year from Connor and Morrissey, a power play marker to note. Kyle Connor will get a shorthanded goal with roughly 2 minutes and 23 seconds to go, getting his sixth goal of the year from Lowry and Pionk. So heading into the second period, the Jets had a 2-1 lead. In the second period, just a one goal to report. Rasmus Andersson would tie the game up with 2.5 minutes remaining, getting his fourth goal of the year, assisted by Kuzmenko. In the third period, Dylan Sandberg would give the Jets a 3-2 lead, getting his second goal of the season from Pionk and Appleton, just a minute and 1 second into the third. Nazem Kadri would tie the game up, getting his fourth goal of the year from Kuzmenko, 4 minutes and 19 seconds of the third. Cole Perfetti would break the tie with just under 4 minutes to go. For Perfetti, that would be his third goal of the year from Niederreiter and Nemestikov. The Jets would add an empty net goal that would come from Mason Appleton, his third goal of the year from Niederreiter and Lowry, and that goal happened with just a minute and 14 seconds to go on the clock. So the Jets would win this game, and they are still undefeated. I personally never would have guessed the Jets would be as successful as they are to start this season, but they've impressed me to say the least. All right, now we're back to New York, but instead of the Rangers, it's the Islanders this time, and they're playing a host to the Florida Panthers. In the first period, Devin Cholowiecki, I would believe is how you pronounce his name, would get his first National Hockey League goal from Cizikas a minute and a half into the first. Kyle Palmieri would increase the lead to 2-0, getting his fourth goal of the year from Pulock, and I'm not even going to try to say the last name, Siplakov, if that's how you pronounce his name. The Islanders had a 2-0 lead at that point. Brock Nelson would make it 3-0, getting his fourth goal of the year from Siplakov and Palmieri, 11:41 of the first frame. Sam Reinhart would finally get the Panthers on the board, getting his sixth goal of the year from Luosterainen and Lundell, 13:27 of the first period. Heading into the second period, the Islanders had a 3-1 lead. Matthew Tkachuk would finally get his first goal of the season from Verhaeghe just over 6 minutes into the second period, making it 3-2. Mackie Samskovich, if I said that name correctly, would get his first National Hockey League goal from Kulikov and Shane Knight with a minute and 44 seconds to go on the clock, so the Panthers would tie it up heading into the third period. Sam Bennett would break the tie, getting his seventh goal of the year from Tkachuk and McCullough, 6:19 of the third period. Matthew Tkachuk would strike again, getting his second goal of the game, a power play marker from Boqvist and Lundell, just over 9 minutes into the third period. The Islanders had a late power play in the third. They would pull their goalie, but unfortunately it would backfire as Gustav Forsling would shoot and get the empty net goal. So we had an empty net goal, a shorthanded goal, with 2 minutes and 17 seconds to go. So despite the fact that the Islanders had 3 goals in the first, they blew it and gave up 6 straight to the Panthers. The Nashville Predators played host to the Columbus Blue Jackets. There's no scoring in the first. Kirill Marchenko would break the tie, getting his fourth goal of the year from Fantilli and Jack Johnson just over 3 minutes into the second period. Zachary Aston-Reese would get his second goal of the season from Mathieu Olivier just over 6 minutes into the second frame. At that point, the Jackets had a 2-0 lead. Philip Forsberg would finally get the Predators on the board, 10:40 of the second frame, getting his fourth goal of the season from Ryan O'Reilly. Heading into the third period, the Jackets were holding on to a 2-1 lead. Cole Smith would get his first goal of the season from McCarron and Brady Shea under a minute into that third period, tying the game up at 2. Zach Werenski would put the Jackets back on top, getting his third goal of the year from Kevin LeBanc and Corelli, 3 minutes and 7 seconds of the third period. Alexander Carrier would get his first goal of the year from LaRue, if I said that name correctly, just over 4 minutes into the third period, tying the game up at 3. We would need overtime to settle this one, and Jonathan Marchessault, one of the new acquisitions from the Nashville Predators in the offseason, will get his second goal of the season, assisted by Brady Shea, a minute 44 into the overtime frame. So Nashville would win this game 4-3. All right, now we're off to Dallas as the Stars played host to the Chicago Blackhawks. In the first period, just a one goal to report. Evgeny Donanov would get his first goal of the season from Lundell, 9:17 of the frame. In the second period, the captain, Jamie Benn, will get the lone goal in that period, his second of the season, from Heiskanen and Harley. And that goal happened 14:42 of the second period. So heading into the third, the Dallas Stars had a 2-0 lead. Matt Duchene would increase the lead to 3-0, getting a power play goal. That would be his 5th goal of the year from Stan Koven and Heiskanen just over 8 minutes into the third period. Ryan Donato would finally get the Blackhawks on the board just over 9 minutes into that same frame, getting his 3rd goal of the year from Craig Smith and Pat Maroon. Connor Bedard would make things interesting, cutting the deficit to 1, getting his 3rd goal of the year from Maroon and Allen, and that goal happened 14-15 of the third period. The Blackhawks would pull their goalie, and just like on some occasions, it would backfire, as Matt Duchene would get his 2nd goal of the game, his 6th of the year from Tyler Seguin, and that goal happened with just 18 seconds remaining on the clock. So the Stars would win this game 4-2. All right, now we're off to Vancouver as the Canucks played host to the Pittsburgh Penguins. In the first period, Anthony Beauvillier, a former Canuck, would get his 3rd goal of the year from Pettersson and Malkin, 7:48 of the first. In the second period, Brian Rust would get his 3rd goal of the year from Beauvillier and Malkin, 1 minute and 56 seconds of the second period. Elias Pettersson would get his 1st goal of the year from Garland and Myers, 4:06 of the second frame, making it 2-1 in favor of the Penguins. Kiefer Sherwood would get his 2nd goal of the year from Bluegar and Desharnais, 4:49 of the second frame, tying the game up at 2. JT Miller would get his 4th goal of the year from Besser, 5:11 of that same period. So just 22 seconds after Sherwood scored, JT Miller scored as well. Arshdeep Bains would get his 1st National Hockey League goal from Daniel Sprong, 9:58 of the second period. So the Canucks had a 4-2 lead heading into the third. Just a 1 goal to report, and that would be Evgeny Malkin getting his 3rd goal of the year from Raquel and Grizzlejuk, 13:22 of the third period. The Canucks would hang on for a 4-3 win. The Vegas Golden Knights were taking on the still winless San Jose Sharks. In the first period, Tanner Pearson would get his 2nd goal of the year from Carlson and Holtz. I believe that was William Carlson's 1st game back as well, 1 minute 57 seconds into the first. Jack Eichel would make it 2-0, getting his 3rd goal of the year from Stone and Pietrangelo just over 3 minutes into the first period. With just over 3 minutes to go, Brett Howden would increase the lead to 3-0, getting his 4th goal of the year from Hurdle and Dorofeyev. So the Golden Knights had a 3-0 lead heading into the second period. Michael Granlund would get the Sharks on the board just over halfway through that second period. For Granlund, that would be his 4th goal of the year from Ekblad and Ferraro. Speaking of William Karlsson, in his 1st game back, he'd get his 1st goal, a shorthanded goal, assisted by Pietrangelo, giving the Vegas Golden Knights a 4-1 lead. And just over 30 seconds remaining, Pavel Dorofeyev will get a power play goal himself, getting his 4th goal of the year from Theodore and Mark Stone. Nico Sturm would score just 15 seconds after that, he getting his 1st goal of the season unassisted, making it 5-2 at that point. In the third period, Mark Stone would increase the lead to 6-2, getting his 4th goal of the year from Eichel and Barbashev, 11:10 of the third. Luke Kinnan would cut the deficit in half with 6.5 minutes to go. For Kunin, that would be his 2nd goal of the season, assisted by Zetterlund. Brett Howden would get his 2nd goal of the game, I do believe, getting his 5th of the year, assisted by Dorofeyev and Thomas Hurdle, and that goal happened just under 3 minutes remaining in the period. So it was basically like a football score. 7-3 would be the final in favor of the Golden Knights. And the last game took place in Seattle, where the Kraken played host to the Carolina Hurricanes. In the first period, just a 1 goal to report. Andrei Svechnikov would get a power play marker, his 2nd goal of the season from Nietzsche and Seth Jarvis, just over 4 minutes into the first period. Jack Drury would get his 1st goal of the season from Blake and Burns, and that goal happened with 3 minutes and 11 seconds to go. So heading into the third period, the Hurricanes had a 2-0 lead. Jared McCann would get the Seattle Kraken on the board just over halfway through the third period, getting his 5th goal of the year, assisted by Matt Beniers. And then Seth Jarvis would increase the lead to 3-1 with over 4 minutes remaining. For Jarvis, that would be his 3rd goal of the season from Martinook and Slavin. The Kraken would pull their goalie, and unfortunately, it did not work. Dmitry Orlov, I should say, would get the empty net goal unassisted, and that goal happened with 1:36 to go on the clock. All right, that's going to take care of Saturday's recap from the National Hockey League. As always, if you're new to this channel and you like this type of content, feel free to hit the sub button. I'd be very grateful and very appreciative. Until next time, and as always, take care.